So it seems that the new Dark Angels Combat Patrol is confirmed and coming out this week. The Dark Angels prices are confirmed, with some Deathwing Knights maybe a little bit higher than I might have hoped for, though the characters perhaps a tiny bit less, and a few interesting new details as to the model releases, with sprue pictures unveiled by Games Workshop for the Inner Circle companions. Let's talk about some Dark Angels. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today I thought I'd make a follow-up video to the Dark Angels release. Now a few more secrets of the Unforgiven have come to light. First up, and perhaps the biggest news, is that the Combat Patrol set is confirmed, and it is also coming this week. I believe that this is the first time that Games Workshop has announced it, and weirdly they seem to have chosen to do so via a sort of article edit. I guess they might drop an actual article on Warhammer Community sometime during this week. Otherwise though, we've got the full pricing unveiled for all the releases, so good to know how much these individually boxed Dark Angels will be costing. And as mentioned, there were some sprue pictures for the Inner Circle companions, so let's go through each of these in turn. First up, we have the new Combat Patrol box set for the Dark Angels. It looks like when I first talked about the release, Games Workshop didn't actually initially announce that on the Sunday preview. It looks like afterwards though they went back and edited the article to include a nice photo of this Vengeful Brethren Combat Patrol to replace the previous Dark Angels one with the Redemptor Dreadnought. We knew that this one was coming as per the pictures in the codex, and will be the £95, €125 or $160 as per other combat patrols, but previously I'd assumed that it might be coming at a later date. They sometimes do that with the combat patrols, but now it does seem that it's indeed going to be this week, so that means that the current Dark Angels combat patrol is going away quite shortly. In this box set, there's a Gravis Captain, 3 Blade Guard, 5 Hellblasters, and 10 Intercessors. And then for the upgrade sprue, kind of disappointingly, it's just 2 copies of the older style Primaris upgrade sprue, so the one that predates this release, as opposed to the one with all the Deathwing bits on it, which I do find maybe a little bit disappointing. I personally think that it would have been nice to update that to the newer, cooler sprue, and that would have had quite a lot of draw to the box set. As a result, I must admit it doesn't really feel much like a Start Collecting Dark Angels sort of box. It feels much more like a Start Collecting Generic Space Marine sort of box, which admittedly I think it works okay for. A character, a bunch of elite infantry, and some core troops is nice enough, though I'd say that people seem to be less excited about this one than the other one with the Redemptor. I guess just having a big fighty and stompy vehicle that's a core unit for the Space Marines is quite popular. Price up the models individually, just for the miniatures and not for the upgrade sprues, you get around about a 20% discount, so not enormous but also not nothing. Maybe kind of lowish compared with the combat patrols, but not so very different to the ones that Games Workshop have come out in 10th edition. They do seem to have been making the deals worse as they go along. Other criticisms of this one are that it doesn't include any unique Dark Angels units. They could have chosen to sub out those Blade Guard veterans for the new Inner Circle companions, which I think would have been nice. And also the Gravis Captain has no unit to lead within this box set, meaning that you'd probably want to pick up some aggressors or something to run him alongside. A Gravis character also seems like a bit of an odd choice for Dark Angels as well. Not saying that they can't use them, but usually if you're going for big stompy infantry, you might be a bit more tempted by Terminators, aggressors not being part of the Deathwing or anything. In any case though, if you did want this combination of Space Marine units, this will be coming out this week, going up for pre-order on the Saturday. As mentioned, it means that the Combat Patrol will be replacing this previous one for the Dark Angels, a Redemptor, 3 Inceptors, 5 Intercessors, and a Chaplain. The discount versus buying separately still wasn't huge on this one though, it was around about 24%, if not including upgrade sprues. I feel like the Combat Patrol so far are maybe trying to get away from any sort of big mainline battle tanks or walkers like the Dreadnought for Combat Patrol games, just given that they can be kind of hard to deal with smaller combat patrol forces out there. Maybe that's part of the logic behind having fewer or lighter vehicles in the combat patrols that we've seen so far. I guess that this one won't be around for long at the moment, so I guess this is a heads up. If you were thinking about picking this up, you might not have much more opportunity. Looks like it's sold out from Games Workshop's web store in the USA and UK currently, though it does remain in stock in Australia. Plenty of third-party sellers might also have some supply of them. Element Games in the UK are still listing 10 plus copies if you wanted to check out the link down in the video description. Could be a possibility to land one of these for £81 while they're still here, though I certainly wouldn't go rushing out to buy one just because of fear of missing out or anything. Otherwise, for the new Combat Patrol, it will get new rules in the Dark Angels Codex that's also out thanks to the Deathwing Assault box. The combat patrol is called the Vengeful Brethren and is led by Master Zachariah. You get the standard Space Marine Oath of Moment if you're playing it in game with those rules, stratagems for fight and death on a 4+ or 3+ for the Blade Guard, a 1 command point to pilot and consolidate 6 inches, and a 1 command point for lethal hits when shooting. That could be handy for the Hellblasters dealing with hard targets. For the enhancements, you choose between sustained hits 1 while you're on an objective versus gaining a command point if you destroy your Oath of Moment target on a 4+. And for your secondary choice, you've got one where the opponent can nominate a midfield objective marker, and it's 5 victory points if you take that at the end of one turn. And the other one's about destroying characters. Destroy a character for 5 victory points and a further 5 VP if all enemy characters are slain at the end of the game. I guess it is a combat patrol that gets you quite a lot of bodies on the board and some good general purpose damage dealers in the Blade Guard and the Hellblasters. I guess it would likely be able to hold its own somewhat at least. Otherwise, beyond the Combat Patrol box set, we've got some prices for the rest of the Dark Angels release. These will be going up for pre-order on Saturday the 24th of February, a 2-week pre-order to go for full sale on Saturday the 9th of March, 5 weeks after the full sale for the Deathwing Assault box. In the release there's the Dark Angels Codex Supplement, Deathwing Knights and Inner Circle Companions, Belial and Asmodai, the Dark Angels Upgrade Sprue dice and data cards, and of course that Combat Patrol at the normal price as mentioned. If you were looking to pick up any of these on launch day, then bear in mind the various discount retailers that will have copies of them around the world. Here are some channel affiliates: Element Games in the UK, Gap Games in Australia, Fenris in Canada, and Wargame Portal in the USA. All of those could be good ways to save a little bit compared with Games Workshop. If you use the links down below in every video description, then a small amount goes to help support Auspex Tactics, as well as saving you a bit versus Games Workshop. Getting into pricing though, it seems that Codex Dark Angels will be $35, so still thankfully at least a little bit cheaper than most other codexes out there. Depending on the exact translation that I put it, it's around £20 to £22 or €29, so a little bit more expensive than the 9th edition Codex supplements for Space Marines. They're still thankfully far behind most of the codexes for 10th edition. Hopefully Games Workshop won't be too long about giving us the points for the Dark Angels book. They're certainly fairly hotly anticipated to see how effective their units will be in-game. There has been quite a lot of negativity around the datasheets nerfs, but it doesn't mean that the army couldn't still be very strong depending on overall points cost. For the Deathwing Knights, they're $70, £42.50 or €55, so unfortunately a little bit more expensive than the standard issue Terminators, just by $5 or £2.50 though, so it's not huge. Maybe a little bit of a slight surprise for the negative, that one. I guess they are quite fancy elite Terminators as they go. As we know from the Codex and the model previews, they have the choice between their power swords or their maces now. I'd hope for a points cost somewhere in the 200 to 220 point sort of bracket. I'd imagine that they might go down a little bit given that their maces lost the big damage 3 that they had. Next up, for the Inner Circle Companions, it does seem that Games Workshop's pricing them the same as the Blade Guard Veterans, $60, £35 or €45. I feel like most of Games Workshop's 3-man model Space Marine kits do feel pretty much on the expensive side. You really don't get many models for how much you pay for these guys, particularly as it's not so far behind, say, a whole Intercessor squad where you'd get 10 models. I do like the actual miniatures themselves, but I feel like these guys are going to be kind of phenomenally expensive for how many points they are in game. I'd guess they're probably going to cost less than the Blade Guard Veterans, given that they only have AP-1 attacks and no storm shields. For Asmodai and Belial, it looks like their pricing is in line with the recent Space Marine Terminator Captain release, $42, £26 or €34. As always with Games Workshop character miniatures, quite a lot of money for the plastic that you get, though admittedly these ones I was almost expecting that they might be a little bit more. Often they have their named character miniatures be an extra couple of pounds or few dollars more than this, so as news for these guys go, maybe not the worst. Asmodai sculpt is maybe a little bit divisive of opinions. I think it looks kind of fun, resting a sword in the head of a slain fallen, and with the swirling incense clouds. He can opt to leave them off, and he does have a non-hooded head option. I still feel like his rules leave a bit to be desired though. As mentioned, Belial was the same sort of cost, $42 to £26 or €34. He's getting his individual release following coming out in the Deathwing Assault box set. He also comes with a head swap option and some interesting stylized burning flames around him as he crusades forward. Again, I feel like his datasheet is a slightly curious one. He makes your Terminators basically into Terminators, but with precision to slay enemy characters. Not bad in the right matchup, but in lots of games it could be kind of pointless, and just might offer a bit less to his squad versus things like the reliable things that a Chaplain or a Captain might bring. Next up, we've got the Dark Angels upgrade sprue and transfers. The pricing for this one looks like it's going to be the same as the Black Templars upgrades, $35, £21, or €27. And for that, you get the Deathwing upgrades for a Terminator squad to make them a bit more Dark Angels, plus lots of shoulder pads and hooded heads and a Watcher in the dark. It is a bit unfortunate though that apparently it won't be this one that will be coming in the Dark Angels Combat Patrol shortly. I think it would have been a good move to have this one as the one that came with that. Certainly would have been a bigger draw to the box compared with 2 copies of the Primaris one in my opinion. Finally, there's the dice and datasheet cards. It seems the dice are the same price as the rest of them, as you sort of expect. Bone coloured dice with green markings and the Deathwing symbol where the 6 should be. And the datasheet cards do appear to be the similar sort of price to the previous AdMech ones, containing the 16 Codex units plus 4 Combat Patrol datasheets. It does appear that at least in the USA, the Codex and the datasheet cards will cost exactly the same price. The datasheet cards definitely could be pretty handy, though it does feel like you get far less for your money than the actual full-fledged Codex here. Overall for pricing, it's pretty much in line with what I was expecting. Maybe a little bit of mercy on the prices for Asmodai and Belial, and perhaps just a little bit more than I might have hoped for the Codex plus the Deathwing Knights, but again not really massively different to what I would have guessed. Finally, for our Dark Angel secrets and reveals, we also have a good look at the sprues for the Inner Circle companions, this one via a Warhammer community article, talking about the design of the new Dark Angels miniatures. Looks like for these guys you do get 3 completely different sprues, each for the 3 miniatures. Looks like it's not just quite as simple as each one sprue builds one miniature, there's a bunch of the heads contained on just one of them, for example. They did say though that each one of the miniatures basically has 2 different ways in which you can build them, to mean that if you did double up on the squad then you get 6 different sculpts. There's options to swap out the different adornments they have on their backpacks, plus a head swap and the option to give one of them that banner, though it doesn't actually have any in-game rules or function, they're all just objective control 2 at base anyway. Quite fun miniatures. It is kind of a shame though whenever Games Workshop makes nice miniatures and then sells them for $60 for 3 of them, it doesn't usually feel like a good deal at that kind of price. In any case, let me know what you make of the Dark Angels Combat Patrol, the prices for the releases, and the sprues for the Inner Circle companions. Look forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments below. As mentioned, if you were looking to pick any of these up, feel free to check out the links in the video description on launch day. Can just be a way to save a little bit of money compared with Games Workshop and also support the channel a little bit too if you'd like to. In any case, I'll certainly be back to cover any other interesting news of the Dark Angels when we get it. I'm looking forward to finding out their points costs and we'll certainly cover that when that comes out. Hopefully that should be sometime either later this week or next week. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and that's another way to support the channel if you'd like to and keep all these videos coming. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, semi-regular votes to tell what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.